Chinese President Xi Jinping concluded his three-day trip to Moscow, and during meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin, both leaders had the opportunity to analyze and make decisions regarding the changing socio-economic situation in the world, especially the war in Ukraine. The Chinese leader visited Moscow days after the International Criminal Court, ICC, issued an arrest warrant for Putin for crimes committed in a neighboring country, where Russian forces have made little progress in recent months, despite suffering heavy casualties. In an official statement at the end of his trip, Chinese President Xi Jinping said he had signed an agreement with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, bringing their ties into a new era of cooperation, as the two leaders called for responsible dialogue to resolve the crisis in Ukraine. In turn, Putin said that all agreements have been reached and economic cooperation between Moscow and Beijing is a priority for Russia. He said China's proposal to end the conflict could be used as the basis for a peace deal, but the West and Kiev were not ready yet. He added, "We believe that many of the provisions of the peace plan presented by China are in line with the Russian approach and can be taken as the basis for a peaceful solution when they are ready for it in the West and in Kiev. However, for now, we do not see such readiness on their part." The joint statement included familiar accusations against the West that Washington is undermining global stability and that NATO is encroaching on the Asia-Pacific region.
Most analysts believe that the Chinese president's visit to Russia seems to be aimed at a peaceful resolution of the war in Ukraine, but the causes and effects of the visit are much broader and deeper. Few analysts try to find the cause of Beijing's sudden move, while it is important to understand that top-level state visits are not planned overnight. In fact, both countries have been working for a long time to deepen the relationship based on common interests, which is significantly strengthened compared to a few years back, because both leaders already said they had no boundaries for common interests when they met in Beijing last January. Although this was before Russia launched its invasion of Ukraine, which could have caused friction in relations. On the one hand, however, China did not condemn Russian aggression or join Western sanctions, rather it covered up Russian arguments that the war was provoked by the West. On the other hand, China is not happy with what the war has done to the global economy. He presents himself as neutral on Ukraine, and even presents a peace plan, but one that chastises Russia for rattling the nuclear saber and calls for respect for territorial integrity. Under these circumstances, Beijing described Xi's visit as a peacekeeping mission. Around these conditions, the Chinese president's visit to Moscow may also be aimed at countering Russia's growing international isolation. Beijing can benefit from this move in two ways. First, to explore Russia's unique experience of surviving harsh Western sanctions, and second, to gain a strong foothold in a Russian market abandoned by Western companies. Both countries are confronted with the West, though on a different scale and for different reasons, which determines their mutual interest, regardless of current events.
In this particular scenario of global isolation, Moscow is looking for more support from Xi beyond trade. This can be understood from an article by Putin in the Chinese press on the eve of Xi's visit, in which he really tried to link Russia's conflict with the West over Ukraine to China's own tensions with the US in particular, to convey the message that it is our common enemy. Putin also wrote that Russia was open to Chinese peace proposals, but claimed that the West did not want an end to the conflict in Ukraine, because Putin argued the war was part of this larger plot to not only degrade Russia, but also contain China. No doubt tactics played a key role in convincing Xi to his point of view. Another extremely important aspect is that Chinese leaders are deeply concerned that even last year, when the United States seemed preoccupied with introducing a series of new sanctions against Russia for its aggression against Ukraine, Washington still found time to impose sanctions on China as well. Since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the U.S. has introduced new controls on exports of microelectronics to China and added 110 new Chinese companies to its list of partial export sanctions. Moreover, to Beijing's concern, all U.S. strategic documents list both Russia and China as key U.S. strategic adversaries, sometimes alongside Iran and North Korea. The EU has taken a softer but similar approach, listing China as a systemic competitor in its strategic reviews since 2019. Under normal circumstances, China would have to adapt to the restrictions on its own, But Russia's policy has given Beijing a unique opportunity to recognize its prospects in advance and prepare for them. There is certainly something to be learned because a year after the invasion of Russia, a collapse was avoided in all major economic spheres.
Click the bell icon and subscribe to the Thinktown One channel for timely exclusive videos on important topics.